This mutation is called Train of Pain, and it is being played on Oblivion Express. We have 3 mutators active. We have Double-Edged, Going Nuclear, and we have Mutually Assured Destruction. So as you can see, there is a nuke that has been detonated over here, thanks to the Going Nuclear mutator. This one makes it very, very difficult to maneuver around the map. The nukes that spawn around will try and target your enemy, your player units, so you have to be really careful with how you address this. You can see here that Karax is using the strategy where you can actually clear all your rocks with just a set of orbital strikes rather than just only your main rocks. This one is very, very useful. It's only available on this map, and it's only on this expansion where these rocks are actually close enough such that you can clear the gas rocks as well as the main rocks with just one set of orbital strikes. So if you are playing Karax on this mission, try and take this expansion and try and utilize this. Now, the other thing that makes it difficult is the double-edged mutator. The double-edged mutator basically means that your units will be taking damage to any enemy unit you attack. Now, usually the way players deal with this is they use temporary units to attack the units here. You can see there's a nuke here that starts to harass some of Fenix's units or Fenix's probes, because the nukes can actually hit your probes in your main base here. But dealing with the double-edged mutator normally means that you would build units that provide temporary units like swarm hosts or brood lords and carriers. So those ones are really good options, or using cooldowns, or being able to counteract damage output from double-edge, but that makes it a little bit difficult as well. Countering the damage output of a player army is really difficult in terms of healing. And lastly, we have the Mutually Assured Destruction, which means hybrids will detonate a nuke whenever they are killed. Now, luckily for the players, there are no hybrids that spawn in the attack waves, but the one thing that does make it a little bit tricky is that the hybrid destroyers that spawn as escorts with the train, if you do end up killing the train off, you will usually get a hybrid that sits on the low ground and starts attacking whatever is over here if you have static defense. Sometimes they end up spawning and moving up here, and they start attacking whatever is in this location. So you will have to be careful when you do take out these hybrids, because if your army is sitting right on top of a hybrid, then it's pretty much a GG to your army. So let's have a look at the masteries while the players do get set up and preparing for the first attack wave. We have Fenix attack speed, AI vitality, and starting supply. And then for Karax we have the unit vitality, the repair beam, and the SOA energy mastery, the starting energy mastery. Now, the one thing that you can see here, Fenix is just taking a lot of damage as he attacks these rocks, and this is what makes it so painful to expand. But the vitality upgrade for Karax, the unit vitality upgrade, given the new Karax changes that have happened, his units are really, really tanky right now. So when you have the total vitality, you could get something like 95% extra life and the 30% extra shields that the mastery provides, because the mastery is multiplicative, which means it multiplies with the initial 50% additional HP from Karax's level 1 talent. So his level 1 talent for Karax only provides HP, it does not provide shields, but combined with the mastery, that extra 30% from the mastery compounds with a 30% extra life that you get from his units. So you could have sentinels that sit at around 95 HP or something. They are really tanky units. But you can see Fenix has already built Klarion, and now he is going to try and take out this train, while there is another chrono wave that comes up from Karax to try and just start to maximize his economy. And Fenix is getting a little bit dangerously close. We have a few solar lances now that are being dropped onto this train, and one set of solar lances with the solar flare upgrade can kill this train. So it's one other thing that you can take advantage of is if you rush your solar lance or your solar flare upgrade, which sets the ground on fire, you can actually one-shot the first train with just one set of solar lances. So it prevents you from having to deal with the first train as Karax with a bunch of units. But remember now, the Karax, they are going to do a meme kind of build, because this is what these players do, and you can see exactly what they have in mind. Fenix producing 2 more carriers, and now we have 2 Stargates coming out for Karax. And at some point I'll try and show you the difference in HP between Fenix's carriers and Karax's carriers. It is actually pretty insane how tanky those units are, and they will have to be a little bit careful. We have a few more shield batteries now being put towards the high ground here, and this will be utilized to provide the allied commanders with a few shields that they can use to make sure that they do not end up getting completely wiped. And now unfortunately there is a nuke that gets targeted here, and yes, those shield batteries will end up going down to that nuke. You have to be a little bit careful because these nukes will actually try and target player units. And having carriers might not be a very wise idea because carriers move really slowly, but these commanders are well experienced in meme kind of builds, and this is what they intend on doing. The next train now is coming up, and Fenix is slowly going to maneuver his way around with his Cyber's Arbiter suit as well. And they have to be, again, very careful. One incorrect nuke, if he ends up getting flanked by a couple of nukes, very bad things can happen. You can see these interceptors don't really last very long against the army units of Amon, because as soon as they start attacking, they start dealing damage to themselves, and then bad stuff can happen. So now we have a bunch of solar lances that are being used, and these solar lances will end up clearing out these enemy escorts here. There's one wraith that appears to be hidden. I think some snipes there from Karax, and Fenix is now moving a little bit dangerously close over here, and he does end up dodging that nuke. Another nuke as well coming up on this train, providing a little bit of zoning for the train, but Fenix ends up maneuvering out of the way, and now there are a bunch of wraiths here, and one of Fenix's carriers does end up going down, and there are a couple of wraiths on this. They are harassing a lot of Fenix's carriers. Fortunately, no detection yet, and I think there's still one more wraith over here. Yeah, there's one last wraith. It's just trying to deal damage to some of the interceptors, but I think, yeah, there's still one more. Okay, now finally it has gotten picked off, and now this train is pretty much sitting duck, but Fenix is dealing a little bit too much damage on Solar Dragoon. He does end up exploding as a result, but now Fenix's carriers are going to start dealing a little bit of damage, and they will try and take out this train. As you can see, Kalarian is not getting the... I don't think Fenix has any intention of getting Kalarian's laser beam upgrade, because that will allow Kalarian to start dealing damage. So let me just show you the HP comparison. We have the Fenix carrier, which is at 150-300, or yes, and then we have Karax's carrier at 195-585 HP. So you can see the amount of the difference that the masteries make. Like, Karax's carriers are so tanky right now. They are just absolutely massive units, literally and figuratively. And you can see just a few more nukes coming up. These commanders now have to get ready to try and deal with the next side. They are indeed doing a mass carrier build, but please do not do this on the random queue. Please do not subject your ally to this, because you're basically asking for trouble. These players are, I wouldn't say trained professionals, but they are experienced professionals in the art of memeing these mutations. So they have a slight idea of what they are doing, at least I hope so. Now Fenix started moving. Unfortunately, there is a nuke. Very nice dodge here. He just loses it at the very last minute, and now they will have to try and push in again. Using the solar lances with the solar flare upgrade that sets the ground on fire just provides a lot of value to clearing out these units. There are a few wraiths here that are cloaked, and they will have to try and deal with this as well. A few more orbital strikes being spammed on top, and I think these wraiths have gone down. There's still one more over here, and now this is where the problem starts. There is a hybrid, and see what happens. There is a pullback on the interceptors. So what you can do is, if you are attacking a hybrid or something and you want to stop these things from attacking, you press S onto your carriers, and your carriers will recall back all their interceptors. Unfortunately, one hybrid did end up picking off a lot of those interceptors. Now, the one thing to also note is that these hybrids are considered minor hybrids. So when they detonate a nuke, you can see the size of the nuke. It's really small. There's another nuke that's coming up here. This is a really large size nuke. But if you are playing on any other mission where you do not have these minor hybrids, so if you have hybrid dominators or hybrid behemoths, they will detonate a large size nuke. So these nuke radii is actually, they're a lot smaller than the ones that you would normally be used to. So it is a little bit more forgiving. There's some random siege tank over here that decides to just siege up and start taking out those units. And now these commanders want to try and deal with the bonus objective. I think it should be okay. But now Karax is also in position, and he wants to try and deal with this attack wave. But this attack wave decides to ignore his carriers and just move straight up this ramp, which is going to be a bit of an issue. We have one solar lance, another solar lance over here, and there's still one more, and that last one as well. This ends up being picked off. So far, I think only Fenix has lost one of his carriers. I think that's basically it. Yeah, I think Fenix has only lost one carrier. The rest are all fine for now. And this train will also end up getting killed off by Fenix on here, and now Fenix is going to start moving towards this next set of trains, and this one is going to be the really difficult one. You can see there's a chrono wave now on from Karax to just provide them with a little burst of unit production that they will need for dealing with this next wave, because this next wave of units is going to be really nasty. You can just see the large number of battle cruisers. Very nicely they end up clumping up as well, but these science vessels are trolling them right now, and they are providing a lot of healing and barriers for these units, but that is basically it. Those science vessels now pretty much stand no chance against the rest of these allied commanders' units, and this train will end up going down. You can see just they have to be really careful when they deal with the hybrids, because they do not really want to lose any of their interceptors to these hybrids. There's one hybrid over here that's not being addressed just yet, but I think it'll end up getting picked up, and I don't think it'll end up killing off these. There's another barrier again. Ends up dying. It does end up dealing a little bit of damage, but it's well out of range. And now there is a nuke that is coming up here. But I think that ends up going down. There's another nuke as well over here. And they have to be very, very careful. They're standing in the range of that nuke. They have to move out of the way. They have to move out of the way. There's one probe as well. And I think that is just, they just saved that just right there. There's another nuke coming up as well, but that goes now as well within range. And they have to be very, very careful. They know what, there are nukes everywhere. There are nukes from mutually assured destruction. There are nukes from going nuclear, and there are nukes from the Terran composition as well. So many nukes everywhere. And still, no carriers have been lost in the process. Just one from Fenix, and that is fine. And again, you can see the repair beam providing a lot of value combined with the repair drones, and these things just make the Karax carriers so tanky, and so much value with Fenix's carriers. They compound so well with the healing ability these things can provide. The repair drones are so important. And now we have the next train, and this is a single train spawn, so it should not be too difficult to deal with. And a few more interceptors here do end up going down as well, but again, they are starting to reach critical mass of units. One large nuke onto these carriers, and they just move out of the way, and the unity barrier does end up protecting these carriers from unnecessary damage. A total of 20 carriers, 21 carriers if you count Polarian, are owned by Fenix, and 7 carriers for Karax. And you can see how the difference in the price of carriers for these commanders. The Karax carriers are so much more expensive, they're so much more difficult to get out, and now these commanders are going to start pushing into this train again. A bunch of solar lances that get dropped to try and weaken these enemy forces. After it goes down, there's a pullback on some of these interceptors, and now that is pretty much it. They have to try and clean up the rest of these hybrids, and they'll have to pay attention to the HP. Fenix is going to go and engage them one by one, pulls back, and another one as well, pull back, and a few interceptors lost, but that is not really much of a problem. There's another hybrid that ends up detonating over there. It does end up killing off a large number of the interceptors from Karax's carrier, but that's all okay. These commanders now are starting to really reach critical mass. 9 carriers total for Karax, and we have 22 carriers, 23 for Fenix. Now these commanders are just going to wait over here and get out of the way of these nukes. So there's one nuke that ends up catching out Fenix's carriers, but he has a unity barrier, which is very, very useful for keeping his units alive. This is the little, you get a second chance before you lose your army entirely. And still, Morgo is trying to harass these commanders by dropping nukes all over the place. Now we have another chrono wave coming up for Karax, just to provide him with a little bit more of a production buff here. And now he's massing up some more carriers as well. There are so many carriers, but I think they've reached a really good number now, and they have to be, again, another little bit careful with these attack waves, because these battle cruisers will be more than happy to cast pneumatic cannons onto these carriers. But I think the attack wave just gets completely wiped by the sheer number of interceptors that are available on the Ghost, trying to join in on the fun by nuking these commanders, but they are having none of it. There are a lot of shield batteries coming up to just provide them with the shield buff that they need to keep these things alive. These units are so expensive. Thing is, one nuke that lands, if they are not paying attention, is basically thousands and thousands of resources just lost in a moment's time. One of the things that makes Karax so useful is that he does have that unity barrier upgrade, or that passive, so to speak, and that allows you to keep your units alive a little bit longer. Especially there's now a throw on some of these probes, because I think Fenix has realized he doesn't really need that many probes because he's going for full carrier build. So you can see now there was a nuke that ends up detonating very close, and a lot of these carriers now have no longer have shield. You just see the amount of Yamato cannons these things are just soaking up. They don't care. Now there's a nuke on this side, and none of these commanders are moving out of the way, and that is a huge explosion right on top of these carriers, and you can see the unity barrier just being removed for a large number of those carriers. So a total of 4 carriers for Fenix and 3 for Karax have gone down as a result of that nuke, and now there are a lot of hybrids that are coming up, but these hybrids are going to basically be wiped out reasonably okay. And again, we're cleaning up this side, but these commanders want to try and deal with this next train spawn as well. So far, yeah, so they haven't lost any additional carriers, and as a result of these hybrids, they have to be a little bit careful. They could end up losing out all these interceptors if they're not pulling back. You see a lot of interceptors getting cleared out by that hybrid detonation. And another one there, but this is a nice pullback as well. And again, yeah, I think reasonably okay. These carriers are just going to be producing interceptors like no one's business. I really wish there was a way of seeing how many interceptors were being created by these commanders, because there are a lot of interceptors that end up getting lost as a result of this. And there's the nuke that's coming up and might end up clipping that carrier, but that's okay. You just see the amount of HP these carriers have. The Karax's carriers are so tanky because of the new passive changes. And you see now there are a few battle cruisers that'll be more than happy to cast a Yamato cannon onto Fenix and onto Karax's defenses, but I think that has been cleaned up. And now Fenix is going to go and finish off this last bonus train, and this train does really stand no chance against the interceptor army of Karax and Fenix. So we have level 2 upgrades for Karax, and we have level 3 upgrades for Fenix. So yeah, these guys are pretty much maxed out right now, and Fenix just producing some more carriers. He's trying to produce as much as he can. Karax is still not supply capped because it's just so expensive. His carriers are so ridiculously expensive. 2 of them do end up getting clipped by that nuke, but the unity barrier does keep them alive. And now this is the last train, I believe, of this mission. And is there going to be a purifier beam, or is there going to be solar lens? Everything is on cooldown, so unfortunately that is not a possibility. And they're just going to focus down the train. Like, you know what, we're just going to ignore everything else. We just want to try and take out this train right now as quickly as possible, so we don't have to suffer the onslaught of Amon's forces. And that train indeed does go down, and that is basically the last train on Oblivion Express. Another nuke, ouch! See, everything is still alive here, which is really funny, but those are all the trains gone. That is GG.